Welcome to this week's installment, our Football Officials video training series. This is the 2017 edition. We're studying the National Federation of High School Rules and five-man mechanics. This video is produced by the Arkansas Association of High School Officials. Visit our website at AAHSO.com. We're helping good officials get better. Technical assistance provided by Dax Hill, Greg Downey, and George Demetrio. Video assistance provided by Chuck Scott. Produced by Kenny Sanders. Our executive in charge of production is Walt Coleman. I'm your host, Todd Allen. The summer heat is turning up, and that means fall's just around the corner. So we got to think about 2017 football season, and the National Federation of High School Football rule changes are in order. First thing I want to talk about involves what is and what is not legal to be on the surface of the ball, because the ball cannot contain any commercial advertisement. The only permissible items on the ball are the ball's manufacturer's name and or logo, a school name and logo or mascot, conference name and or logo, and the state association name and or the logo, and of course the National Federation of High School name and or logo. The ball pictured on this slide is legal. It's an example of a school name and a school mascot which have been added to the ball, and that is perfectly legal. Second change, again, nothing competitive about this for our game. It's just changing who meets with the head coaches in the required pregame meeting. In the past, the rule has stipulated that the referee and the umpire have to attend, but with this rule change, the state association may determine the game official that's going to accompany the referee during the required pregame meeting with each head coach. This rule change doesn't take effect until 2021, but I just wanted to touch on it so that you have some information if you're asked. To sum up all the slides about uniforms, just starting in 2021, jerseys will have to clearly contrast with the visitor's white. Here's a couple of examples. This light gray jersey doesn't clearly contrast with the white visitor's jersey. Here is another example. Jersey A is the visitor's jersey. B and C will both be illegal in 2021 as they both are not dark enough for a home jersey. Jersey D is a legal dark gray home jersey, and this will continue to be legal. Continuing with the focus on risk minimization, the committee created a definition for a blindside block. This block involves contact by a blocker against an opponent who, because of his physical positioning and focus of concentration, is vulnerable to injury. Unless initiated with open hands, it's a foul for excessive and unnecessary contact when the block is forceful and outside the free blocking zone. Here's an example of a blindside block outside the free blocking zone that is legal because the forceful contact was initiated with open hands. It would not matter if this block was initiated inside or outside the free blocking zone because of the open hand technique. Remember, this rule change for blindside blocks only involves blocks that are initiated outside the free blocking zone. Boy, I like this rule change because we're just sticking with the basic philosophy of PSK fouls. And you just think about it this way. When Team A kicks the ball away, because they want to get rid of it, we don't want to do anything to give them the ball back if it occurs after they kick it. And this is what we're talking about with illegal participation fouls on kick plays. If the kick has occurred and we have an illegal participation foul by the receiving team, these fouls are just enforced as basic PSK fouls. There's no change to these fouls that occur after the kick ends because those fouls are just enforced with the all but one principle. But fouls that occur during the kick for illegal participation, which in previous years we would have gone back to the previous spot and given the ball back to Team A, which didn't make sense. They kicked it because they wanted to get rid of it. Now we're able to just enforce these fouls as PSK fouls. Good common sense here. I like this rule change a lot. I want to make this as simple as possible. Let's just talk about pop-up kicks. Very in basic form, because what we're talking about is balls that are immediately kicked into the ground and then pop up into the air on the first bounce. If they take two or more bounces, or if they dribble along the ground and then pop up in the air, these are perfectly legal. We're just talking specifically about one certain type of a kick. The ball's on the tee, it's driven immediately into the ground and pop up into the air. George Demetrio in Colorado has put together a really good video on pop-up kicks, and it goes in depth on that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but we'll post that video for you to review here. Just two basic points I want to make now. First, a pop-up kick is defined by rule. It's a very specific kick, and it's in 2.2410. And it is prohibited by Rule 6.1.11. Let's talk about 2.32.16, and this is just definitions now for defenseless players, and we've added a couple, and we've just moved these from the casebook to the rule book, and I think that's a good change here. So a player on the ground, including a runner who's obviously given himself up and is sliding feet first, as you see here in play pick A, and a runner already in the grasp of a tackler whose forward progress has been stopped, like in B, these are now both defenseless players. I want to add something here, too, about spotting the ball when a player initiates a feet-first slide. A good way to mark these plays is for our line of scrimmage officials, just wherever you think the player initiated the slide, just back up 1 yard. Let's say, so we're at the B40 where we think the runner initiates the slide at the B40. Just place the ball at the B41 yard line, because he's protected when he initiates the slide, not once he gets on the ground. What we're just trying to do here is just try to protect these players that are giving themselves up. So if you spot these a yard further back than you think he started the slide, you're going to get the vast majority of these plays right. Look at this play pick A. A player obviously out of the play or not in the immediate vicinity of the runner is now defined as a defenseless player. A player who receives a blindside block with forcible contact not initiated with open hands, as in B here, is also a defenseless player. I like this change, and something we were already doing with authority granted to the referee for dealing with teams illegally consuming or conserving time. But this just put it into the rule book, and this is going to allow us to be more consistent on how we handle the clock inside the last 2 minutes of either half or the last 2 minutes of the under 2 minutes in the game. So this rule just allows us, the offended team, if the clock is running, will have the option of starting the game clock on the snap if they choose. So no one likes to see a team gain an advantage by committing a foul, and this will shore that up for us. This creates a dead ball when the ball carrier has a prosthetic limb that completely comes off. The key word here is completely comes off. This is another example of a rule change there. I don't remember us having a real problem with it, but it's obviously come up somewhere. So this just protects the ball and the snapper's arm until he completes the snap. Now the snap is defined in a rule. That's 2.40, and this change is in the rule for encroachment 7.1.6. It's now a foul for the defensive player, and the foul is encroachment to touch the ball or the snapper's arm until the snap has been completed. Again, the committee got this rule change right. I like it a lot, and this is something that we've been teaching for years. Now we're down to 6 categories for forward pass interference with this one that was seldom called on the field. I saw one play that I remember where we called face guarding, and I think we graded it incorrect here because the rule book never really defined what face guarding was. But let's not even get into that. Let's just know that face guarding has now been eliminated from the rule as prohibited conduct. So there is no foul for face guarding in forward pass interference. This is a good change, and I don't think it's really going to change the way we officiate DPI. Let's talk about some things relative to points of emphasis. The value in talking about these things preseason is we can all get on the same page with our expectations and not have to deal with unnecessary administrative penalties during the game. The fans come to watch the kids play. Let's do everything in our power as game officials, coaches, and administrators to clean up these issues before the season starts so they're non-issues during the games. Let's talk about 4 things that are relative to points of emphasis. First, players' responsibility to avoid illegal contact. 2, illegal helmet contact. 3, sideline management and control, professional communication between coaches and game officials. And 4, proper enforcement for penalties for violation of equipment rules. Our coaches are very proactive in teaching techniques that minimize the risk of injury for our student athletes. No one wants to see anyone get hurt, and there's no bigger advocate for safety than our coaches. But ultimately, players have to make a decision, and they're ultimately held responsible for those decisions for using legal blocking techniques like in play pick A and tackling techniques as demonstrated in play pick B. These important safety rules continue to be a point of emphasis in an effort to protect all of our students' athletes' safety. We have to continue to emphasize the importance of avoiding illegal helmet contact, and the game has changed over the last several years as we learn more and more about concussions and traumatic brain injuries. Here are 3 examples of illegal helmet contact, which include butt blocking, face tackling, and spearing. This slide brings up a great topic and something you guys have heard me preach about for years: professional conduct and communication. We have to understand everyone's role and have empathy for our coaches, and our coaches have to have empathy for the game officials. First, let me remind our game officials, we have no stake in the outcome of the game. When it's over, we have neither won nor lost. This is an emotionally charged environment for competitors, and this includes coaches. When they become emotional and irrational, and yes, coaches, I said irrational, we have to be the calming force. We have to be the one that everyone on the field turns to as a steady and consistent force for safety and fair play throughout the contest, even when the game is extremely emotional for the competitors and the coaches. Coaches, too, have to understand that as game officials, we make mistakes, just like players and just like coaches. Perfection is our constant pursuit, but it's unattainable for all of us. As game officials, we can't dwell on the mistakes of the players and coaches, and the coaches can't dwell on our mistakes. Student athletes see professional athletes handle game officials much differently than we're going to allow the student athletes to deal with us. They're students, and such, they'll conduct themselves to the game officials like a student would be expected to conduct himself for any person in a position of authority. Coaches must be a role model for their student athletes. We have to all recognize that there's a point when additional discussion will be fruitless, and then we have to move on, as difficult as it can be at times. But we must continue to address and deal with each other in a very professional manner. Equipment should be inspected and issues addressed in the pregame. When we have equipment violations that result in penalties, it's an embarrassment for the officials, the coaches, and the student athletes. When we observe a violation of equipment rules, we need to make sure we afford the players and coaches an opportunity to address these issues before they become potential fouls that result in the administration of a penalty. These types of non-football playing fouls are just bad for the game. Officials need to be on the field and inspecting all the equipment before the game starts and give the coaches plenty of time to address these issues before the contest begins. That's it for our 2017 NFHS football rule changes and our points of emphasis. I appreciate you spending some time with this video and the additional time you'll spend studying and preparing for the game. There's no substitute for a complete understanding and knowledge and application of the football rules, mechanics, and philosophies. All three are critically important to administering a fair and competitive contest. We're game managers. We have a responsibility for the entertainment value of the game, and that's by managing the game well, by understanding our role, the role of the players, and the role of the coaches, having a great pregame discussion, and working together as a team of 5 officials on the field doing our very best from play one till the end of the game. I hope you'll check back with these videos and even subscribe to this channel as we'll update training videos throughout the year. Beginning in September, our 10-week video training series will highlight mechanics, rule changes, some great things that we do on the field as officials, and some things that we can do better. I look forward to seeing you in week 1. Till then, for the Arkansas Association of High School Officials, I'm Todd Allen, and I hope you have a great rest of the summer.